Hi, welcome to Chad's Silversmithing. I thought today I would do something kind of modern and simple. I have this really long, skinny, sort of trapezoidal shaped Red Creek Jasper, which comes from China, and it's one of my favorite stones is Red Creek Jasper. It comes in so many different looks. Um, this one's going to be interesting because it's so linear, and so that's why I thought I might make something modern out of it. So I drew up an idea, and we'll see how it turns out. But it's not going to be overly complex, so this might be a beginner's project. But let's see how it goes. So these are a few of my design idea sketchbooks that you can get on my merch store. Most of them have some useful information on the back. This one has gauged inches to millimeter chart to convert. I find that one particularly useful. This is another conversion chart. It's fractions of an inch to decimals to millimeters, and that's pretty useful for me as well. This one's got some flow temperatures of different solder types on it. That's kind of useful information. The big feature for me, though, are, well, two things. One, I can keep a record of all my projects that I make so that I don't do too much repetition, and also so I know how I did it if I want to go back and make one for somebody. The other thing is the stop matrix in the background helps me to draw better pictures. I am not inherently a good sketch artist, and so it helps me to do that a little bit. So here's what I had in mind today. Get yourself one or two of these on the merch store. I think they're really useful. This is Red Creek Jasper. You can see it's got some interesting colors and very earth tony, but tans and some almost pinks in there, and then some this deep red kind of linear stuff. It just makes for kind of nice stuff. And sometimes when you have a chaotic stone like that, I think it's fun to do something really clean and sort of modern looking, and so I did something kind of simple here just to frame it. And I thought I would use, well, to make the bezel I'm going to use 26 gauge fine silver bezel strip that's 3/16 inch tall. I may file it down a little bit if I need to. Probably will for this one. That's 4.76 millimeters by 0.41 millimeters. For this piece here, I'm going to use 10 gauge square wire, and I'm going to flatten it down at the ends here so it spreads out a little bit, and we can kind of get it to flare. That'll give it some three-dimensionality both in this dimension, but when you look at it from the side as well, because it will gradually taper to a thinner shape. This is 14 gauge square wire. I'll probably just leave that as is, and then 14 gauge round wire to make the 3 rings for the bail. So I try to keep it as simple as I could, but still kind of frame the stone with something to draw your attention to it. So I think it'll be pretty. We'll see. One thing I did think of while I was doing this, I'm going to use 26 gauge sheet on the back because silver's so expensive right now. If it wasn't quite that expensive, I would probably use something stiffer like 22 or 20. And because when I attach it to this thing here, it's going to be attached basically to the bezel, which is thin, and the base, which is thin. So I'm going to reinforce it with a piece of 22 behind it that just kind of gives this bezel a little bit more support where it attaches to this, rather than make the entire back 22 or 18 or 20 or something like that. So, but I think overall it'll be a simple build, so probably a beginner project. And if you haven't done things with corners before, maybe don't make this your first project, for bezels anyway. But let's go ahead and make a bezel for this guy. If you're interested in my torch and solder and flux setup, I'll put some information up there for you. First, let's file this flat. Sometimes making bezels for these long, skinny stones like this is a little challenging. One thing I need to be a little careful of too is with this thin and this long, it'll be super easy to break this one. So I'm going to try to be as careful as I can when I'm handling it or when I'm going to set the stone. I do not have a replacement for this one, unfortunately. I did have 2 of these, and I think I used the other one for some other project. So no go on replacing this one if I break it. It would not be the first time I've broken stone when I was doing stuff like this. I had, one time years ago, I had these really long, elongated oval turquoise cabs that were really pretty but super fragile. And I broke a number of those when I was setting them. That was always a bummer. Okay, let's make a little scratch just beyond where they meet the skosh. Went down to one of the galleries I'm in today and swapped some jewelry out. See if we can get some business. Looks like I got a little piece of solder right there, so I don't even have to cut any right now. Although if you're new to this, it's never a good idea to assume a little piece of metal on your table is solder if you're not 100% sure. I am 100% sure on this one. Everybody at some point or another picks up a piece of sterling and tries to use it as a piece of solder. It's sort of a rite of passage, I guess, as you melt your piece. One thing I usually tell beginners when they're doing bezels is it's really easy to melt bezels when you're a beginner, and so keeping the heat moving all the time and not focusing the heat where the solder is so much, but heating the entire piece pretty consistently will get you a lot better results. So it's hard to resist the urge when you're new to this to focus the heat right where the solder is, because you know you're supposed to melt that. But it really melts much more effectively if you get the piece of metal up to the temperature that will melt the solder versus the flame melting the solder, because it really needs to be that temperature for it to stick to it. So let's go ahead and make a bottom for this too. Let me find some 26 gauge sheet. Oh, here it is right here. Boy, that's not long enough to do that right there. Right there. It is right there though. Let's take it right out of the middle like that. Let's not. Inevitably, when I have a new beginning class or something, I tell people to cut a piece of sheet for the bottom of their bezel. They will do something like that. There's almost always someone who does something like that. Going to get this as flat as we can. Alright, so we're going to cut enough solder to kind of space them out on the inside of there along the length, and then we'll solder this down. A thin sheet like this, when you flux it and then dry the flux, sometimes it warps a little bit because it's cooler in one spot and hotter in another spot. So if it does warp a little bit, you may need to kind of push it back down as it dries. Ideally, we want some good contact all the way down the whole length. Some people like to put like 30 little tiny ones all the way along the length, but that always seemed to me kind of a waste of time because all this stuff is going to be underneath the stone anyway. So any kind of mess that you can't clean up. doesn't really matter. With bezels that are more spread out like this, getting that piece of sheet on the bottom up to the soldering temperature before you melt your bezel can be challenging, especially if you're new at this. There's a couple of ways you can deal with that. With practice, you'll be able to heat it okay without doing that, just by kind of avoiding the bezel. But if you need to, you can put it on one of those tripods with screens. Those work pretty well. So you can get the torch underneath it and heat it from the bottom. You can also tip it up and heat it from the bottom. Be careful. My friend Flying Chef in Hawaii uses a couple of little crucibles, little mini crucibles, to kind of balance it across, so it's got like a little bridge across the crucible. That's a good idea too. I think we're good. You can use your saw if you'd like to do this part. This is thin enough sheet to pretty easily snip off though. Well, that's the basic idea. So this is that 10 gauge square wire. And I cut this a little bit longer than it needs to be, so I think I'm gonna start from this end and curve my way up there. And we'll just kind of work our way around the circle, or the oval. So we start on this end, I guess. Square wire always wants to try and turn on you a little bit. Sometimes it helps me when I'm bending stuff like this to make a little mark to know where it really starts separating from the way that I want it to bend. Did a little bit of fiddling with the shape just by bending it with these nylon jawed pliers and cutting off little bits until it kind of looked pretty symmetrical. And now what I need to do is I want this to taper down and get wider at the bottom. And so I think we need to kind of decide where that taper is really going to start. Let's do this. Took me a while to find the ruler. Okay, so from the tip there to the top of that mark is 25 millimeters. So about right there, start tapering it down. We're just going to use a chasing hammer. I use this nice smooth block that was sent to me. This is going to distort it a little bit, but we'll readjust it after we're done. So. Getting a little therapeutic pounding in. Okay, let's see. We may need to anneal this a little bit because we probably work hardened it pretty badly. Like that, it's pretty good. Okay, let's do a little filing, just kind of clean up filing. Find a little scrap, 22 gauge or 18 gauge. Oh, here's some even thicker stuff. I'm just going to kind of file this to neaten it up. If you've never seen one of these, it's called a miter vise jig. So I think I'm just going to solder it on like that, and then I should be able to solder this on like that pretty well. So let's do that. Probably the easiest way to do it would be to sweat some solder onto this thing here, which means to pre-melt some solder there so that it's already where it needs to be. That's pretty close. Let's see if we can get it stuck down. There should be enough solder on there. Now let's make sure we have enough solder in there. I want to make sure there's a seam down there and a seam on top. So let's do that. I have a few pieces right here. So I'm going to do something called pick soldering. I'm going to pick up a bit of solder on the end of my pick. This is a little titanium pick, and then we'll heat the whole thing until it's the soldering temperature and then touch it where I want it to go. It's a really nice way to precisely position some solder. If you're interested, I'll put a link up there how to do it. One of those skills that opened up a whole bunch of stuff that I couldn't do prior to that. If you're a video gamer, it's like gaining a new skill on the ability tree. Pick soldering, I should say. That looks reasonably symmetrical, I think. I'm just going to use a saw to cut that off right along the top there, so let's go do that. Welcome to my well-used bench pen. It's probably getting close to time to make a new one. Alright, I'll just use the file to clean that up. Now we need to make this little 14 gauge square kind of oval. So why don't we make a circle to start with. So when we squish it to make an oval, it'll spread out a little bit. So let's just kind of wrap this around. Doing this, it's going to try and twist on you, because square wire just kind of does that. I'm going to solder this into a circle and then make it into an oval, just because I think I can get it more consistent that way. And then we'll just cut out a piece so that it fits right up under there. Well, first let's just use the nylon gels and see if it will let us squish it down a little bit. Ow, if I can do it without pinching myself. Too late. That looks pretty good. Well, let's just do it. I'll get it soldered together and then I'll look at it and I'll think to myself, well, that's just a tiny bit off. Just because that's how it always goes. And the more mass this thing accrues as I build it, the more heat it's going to take to get it up to soldering temperature if you're new to this. So I have to keep that in mind. This little thing that I'm soldering onto this great big thing that doesn't have near as much mass, so it's going to get up to that soldering temperature more quickly. I think that's okay. Let's cool that off. Alright, let's make some more rings for the chain to go through. How big do we want it to be? Probably about that size. This is just 14 gauge round. I like kind of clean line things sometimes. It's fun to do filigree or something like that, or something ornate like Art Nouveau kind of stuff. But every once in a while it's nice to make something really with bold, clean lines. When I first started, I used to over-decorate things, just because that's what you do when you're new. Okay, now I gotta get all those little guys soldered closed. That one. So if you're more comfortable doing a lower temperature solder, you can do that here too if you want to. But as long as you don't heat up that great big pendant part, if you're just heating the ring, then there's no reason for the solder to really stick to that or flow again on that big pendant. So try and keep the heat just on the rings here mostly. Make sure they're not touching each other. No. Dos. Tres. We'll let that clean up in the pickle, get it all polished up, and then we'll set that stone. So I'll be back. Okay, had a little dinner, polished this up, and I've got a little bit of tag board behind it to kind of raise it up a bit. And I do this a little differently than some. I use the flat side of my chain nose pliers as a bezel pusher. And that's what I'm going to start by doing. I'm going to kind of put a little pressure on the stone. Try not to put too much pressure in any one spot. I'm going to do a little burnishing with the rounded outer part here. kind of what I had in mind. I think it came out pretty nicely. I'll get it all, I use a polishing cloth on it and everything, put it on a chain. Touch up the top of the bezel here with the Dremel and a blue fine silicone polishing wheel very carefully, and then get some pictures. So tell me what you think. Tell me if you like it. What kind of styles do you guys like the most? I like doing lots of different stuff personally, changing it up now and again. It's fun to kind of mimic certain styles. This looks almost Bauhaus-y to me. So tell me what you think. Tell me what you'd like to see. All right, I'll get some better pictures. Okay, well that was the modern Red Creek Jasper pendant. I hope you enjoyed that one. If you did, I'd love it if you'd hit the like button before you go. That really helps to get my channel promoted. And I would also love it if you'd visit my main channel page on YouTube. I have over 600 videos now. I've been doing 3 per week for about a little over 4 years now. There's quite a bit of content there, and I'm sure that some of it will be useful or interesting if you check it out. So go watch a few videos, and I'd love it if you'd also subscribe to my channel. It doesn't cost anything, and it really helps me out a lot, and it allows you to find my videos more easily. So before we go, I wanted to thank some people. My patrons on Patreon are my core group of supporters, and they are a marvelous group of people. I really enjoy interacting with them over there, and they've created this wonderful community, and we can share resources and show each other what we're working on and stuff. It's really nice, and I appreciate them turning it into that kind of a place. So thanks, you guys. The other group are my YouTube subscribers. We just passed 27,500, which is amazing. Thank you so much for the kind comments. I get so many nice comments from people. I appreciate the suggestions, the constructive criticism, how you do things. All that stuff helps me to learn new things too, so I appreciate that. And thanks also for the contributions like the Buy Me a Coffees, the Super Thanks, the merch purchases, and the ebook purchases. That stuff makes my channel sustainable, and I couldn't do it without your help, so thank you for that. Finally, don't forget to check out the video description down below. There's some important links there, as well as information about this video. There's a link to my Patreon if you want to find out about the different tiers of membership over there. It's a great place with a lot of cool people, and I do some unique stuff for them as well. There's a link to my merch store if you want to get yourself one of those nice design idea sketchbooks. I find them super handy for keeping track of my projects, how I did them, what I used, all that kind of stuff. So it's really nice. Get yourself a couple. And finally, there's a link to my newest ebook, which is 2025's Guide to the Tutorials I did during that year. There's a page for each of them and a link to the video, as well as a picture of the sketch that I drew, a picture of the final outcome, a list of materials, stone information if there's a stone in it, a difficulty rating, and some notes I took about the project. Some things I might not have mentioned in the video, things that I thought about afterwards, like what I learned from it. Did I pick up any new tricks from it? Would I do it differently if I was to do it again? That kind of stuff. So you can even get 3 years worth of those books. I've done 2023, 2024, and 2025. You can get a package deal of those at all 3 for $15 off. So that's a good deal. And we'll provide you with a ton of projects to work on right at your fingertips. It's also a very nice way to support my channel. So thank you for that. All right, well, take care. Happy silversmithing.